You know, it's funny how things work out. Have you ever thought about how something you do for love, a simple statement on a piece of paper, could years later turn into a weapon in a fight over millions of dollars? Well, today we're going to dive into a case that's just wild, where one man's signed oath became the single key to unlocking a massive legal dispute.
I mean, seriously, think about it for a second. Could the words you swear are true, for a really good reason, come back to bite you and just completely blow up your argument in a totally different situation? That is the exact question at the heart of this incredible legal battle between Mr. Britton and Miss Kazama.
All right, let's get into it. So on one side, you've got Mr. Britton, he's 86 years old, and on the other, his former partner, Miss Kazama, who's 60. Now, after their decade-long relationship came to an end, they ended up in court, fighting over this really critical 4-year period, a 4-year gap that could totally change how their assets were divided.
And here is where it all gets messy. See, back in 2006, to help Miss Kazama immigrate, Mr. Britton signed a legal document, an oath, saying their relationship started in 2002. Fast forward a few years to family court, and suddenly he's trying to protect his money. So what does he say? He tells a totally different story. The relationship didn't really get serious until 2006. So you've got two sworn statements, two completely different dates. Which one was true? And maybe more importantly, which one would the court actually believe?
Now, to really get why the judge made the decision he did, we have to look at their relationship, because it was unique. They were a couple for over a decade, but they never actually lived in the same house. So the big question for the court was, were they a real couple in the eyes of the law?
Their story starts back in 1999, but the real turning point, the moment everything shifted, was November 2002. That's when Mr. Britton officially separated from his wife. And from that day on, what had been kind of a secret affair blossomed into this very real, very public partnership. It got so serious that just a few years later, in 2006, he sponsored her visa.
And if you look at how they actually lived, the truth of their relationship becomes pretty clear. Yeah, they had separate houses, but she had a key card to his place. She was there every day, managing the household. They went to parties together, as a couple. He even gave her a ring that she wore on her wedding finger. And the money? He paid for her rent, her car, her medical bills. He even paid her daughter's university tuition. This was not some casual thing. This was a partnership through and through.
So with all that background, let's step into the courtroom, because this whole case, with all its arguments and twisting stories, was about to hinge on one single piece of paper from Mr. Britton's past. So picture this. Mr. Britton is on the witness stand. He's sticking to his story, right? He's insisting the relationship only began in 2006. And then Mrs. Kazama's lawyer gets up and presents what the judge himself would later call the killer evidence.
And this is exactly why it was so devastating. Right there at the top of that immigration form Mr. Britton had signed was this huge, stark warning. The stakes were no joke. He was swearing to the government under penalty of perjury, facing up to 10 years in prison and a massive fine if he was lying.
And then came the moment that changed everything. The lawyer points to a question on the form. Right there in black and white, when did you and your partner commence a spousal relationship? And his answer, signed and sworn by him, November 19th, 2002. The exact date he was now trying to deny in court.
So when he was confronted with his own words, his own signature, Mr. Britton was, and I'm quoting the judge here, somewhat surprised. He had to backtrack, he was stammering, and in that single moment, his credibility just, poof, it completely collapsed. He was totally caught in a trap of his own making.
And this is where the whole thing goes from a simple he said, she said to, honestly, a brilliant game of legal chess. It wasn't just about who was telling the truth anymore. It was about a much bigger question. Should the law ever allow someone to profit from their own dishonesty? See, Ms. Kazama's lawyer brought up this really powerful legal idea. It basically says that a court shouldn't help someone who comes in and admits they did something illegal, like, say, lying to the government on an official form, to then make money from that lie. This backed Mr. Britton into an impossible corner. It was a total catch-22. The only way for him to win this family court case and protect his money was to basically admit, Your Honor, I committed a serious offense. I lied on that immigration document. It was an unwinnable position.
The judge's logic here was just masterful. He built this kind of dual insurance for his decision. First, he ruled on a technicality. He said, look, because of public policy, I'm not even going to listen to testimony that contradicts the sworn statement. A total knockout. But then, and this is the brilliant part, he added another layer.
He said, even if I did allow it, the 2006 visa statement is just way more believable. It was made closer to the time, and all the other evidence we saw backed it up. The verdict was absolutely airtight.
So, after that incredible showdown, what was the final call? And maybe more importantly, what can we all take away from this story about love, money, and one very, very important signature? The verdict was as clear as day. The court officially declared that yes, a common law relationship existed between them, and it started on November 9, 2002. Ms. Kazama won this critical first round, establishing that longer 4-year period.
So what's the lesson here for the rest of us? Well, 3 big things. First, your word, your integrity, it has a price. Being honest on official documents isn't optional. It can have massive consequences years later. Second, never underestimate the power of written evidence. A signature on a piece of paper can be more powerful than anything you say out loud. And finally, the law cares about the reality of a situation, the substance, not just the form. It looks at how you actually live your lives together, not just what your mailing addresses are.
At the end of the day, Mr. Britton tried to tell 2 different stories, one for love and one for money. But what this case shows us is that in the eyes of the law, you only get one. Because when you put it on the scales of justice, a single signed oath can be heavier than a mountain of gold.